Some shows talk about one. Some shows talk about one team. Other shows barely talk sports. This show will talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks every day. Every day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer, served up by Wendy's on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan. Download the Wendy's app today.
No Sparky today. Ramie Makhlouf in for Sparky this afternoon. He'll be back tomorrow. Fear not. And I am live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Charlie's Sound of the Day still to come this hour at 3:40. Easy for me to say. Bart Winkler of the Infinity Sports Network, and of course very familiar to listeners of this station. He'll be here at 4 o'clock to talk all the day's Wisconsin sports issues. And joining me now to talk a little Brewers on the Fan Guest Line, which is powered by Gruber Law. One call. That's all. He covers the Brewers for Forbes Sports and us right here on the Fan. It is a pleasure to welcome in Andrew Wagner, presented by Focus Baseball. Wags, how are you this afternoon, my man?
So what, Sparky couldn't take the heat from my my Twitter statistics last night and had to take the day off?
Which Twitter statistics? Which Twitter statistics? I might have missed those.
I was just pointing out home run totals since the trade deadline. Bryce Terang with 5, William Contreras with 4, Blake Perkins with 3, Isaac Collins and Andrew Vaughn with 2 each, and a certain third baseman now with the Seattle Mariners, who many, including our fearless leader and longtime friend, demanded the Brewers obtain. Eugenio Suarez has all of 1 so far. So,
really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Suarez. I tell you what, he's been awful now for quite some time. Like I think he's 4 for 48 since the trade deadline.
Wow.
But you go back 25 games. So Andrew Vaughn was called up July 7th. So you go back to July 7th. Both Suarez and Vaughn have played 25 games. Suarez is slashing 176, 232, 473 with 8 home runs, 17 RBI. He's got 28 strikeouts, 8 walks, and 91 at-bats in the 725 OPS. Not including last night, which would have been game 26. Vaughn slashing 348, 412, 629 with 7 homers, 28 RBI. He's got a 13-10 strikeout to walk ratio on 89 at-bats and a 1041 OPS. People like to say, well, it doesn't count because it wasn't at the deadline. Well, July 7th also happens to be the day that Milwaukee obtained CeCe Sabathia in 2008, which is considered the greatest trade deadline acquisition in Brewers history. So that's
a great point, Wags. And roster construction can happen at any time on the calendar other than, July 31st or August 1st through the end of this. It can happen in the offseason. It can happen in April, May, June, or earlier in July. And not to mention, and I know, and maybe they've come around to it, but Wags, I remember the last time I was here with you, and Brandon Woodruff was on the verge of coming back from his injury, and I said to you then, and I think you agreed, that's almost a trade deadline acquisition, and he's looked every bit the ace since he's come back and has been probably better than any starting pitcher that was traded at the trade deadline.
Yep, and people have called that, a cop-out and covering for a franchise that won't spend money. But you look at Brandon Woodruff's numbers, okay? Look at what he's done the last couple starts. You tell me what teams would give up to get a frontline starting pitcher who's been putting up those numbers. Just look, and I'm not trying to rub the salt in the wounds there, Ramie. I love you, and I'm not trying to.
I know.
You look 90 miles to the south. What was the Cubs' biggest need going into the trade dedeadline?
Probably starting pitching. Yeah.
Look at what they gave up to get Mike Soroka, who's not even pitching now. Teams would spend a fortune to get a guy like Brandon Woodruff, and all the Brewers had to do was call him up. You're right. Roster construction happens year round, and you can make the argument if the Brewers don't go and make that move for Quinn Priester in April or May, and if they don't make that move to trade Savali for Vaughn and then bring Vaughn up in early July, you could make the argument they might have been in a position to sell at the deadline without those moves. So it's easy to look back and say they should have done this, they should have done that, but sometimes your best moves, aren't made in those last 24 hours. Sometimes you made the moves you need ahead of that deadline.
Talking with Andrew Wagner, covers the Brewers for Forbes Sports. Us right here on The Fan. He's brought to you by Focus Baseball. And I was talking before I brought you on about this Brewers team, Wags, and I was asking because I was out last night and ran into some friends who were Brewers fans, and they wanted to rub the salt in the wounds of me, a Cubs fan, a little bit. And all I could say in return was, yeah, man, the Brewers are really good, and they're a really fun team to watch. I got nothing negative to really say about these guys, and they came back at me with, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm paraphrasing here, how they break our hearts this year. What's different about this Brewers team than recent playoff Brewers team that you can put your finger on?
I think that it comes down to the simple fact that they're the most well-rounded team that this organization has had in quite some time. You look back at some of their recent playoff run teams, going all the way back to 2008. Okay, the strength back then was a bunch of dudes who absolutely crushed the baseball,
yep.
Which made up for a whole lot of pitching deficiencies. You basically had Brandon Woodruff and Giovanni at that point, who was coming off an injury. 2011. You had good pitching, you had a good offense, but they were still very streaky, strikeout prone. They weren't great defensively. 2008 kind of was just a perfect storm where the team just got hot and was riding basically a hodgepodge of pitching and a dominant bullpen to a deep run. All right, the runs after that, they were a little different. At that 2021, 23, you had all that great pitching. The Brewers had no offense. Last year, it was a pretty well-rounded team. This is even better. I mean, they are flawless defensively. They are playing absolutely beautiful manufactured baseball offensively. We heard the quote from Connor Dawson earlier this week. You make it hell for the pitcher 1 through 9.
Yep.
They're doing that. They are not striking out a ton. They're not hitting into double plays, which is the ultimate rally killer. When you have a team that puts guys on base as much as the Brewers do and doesn't have the power as the Brewers don't, that's a recipe for rally killing double plays. The Brewers don't do that. And then you've got to say nothing of the starting pitching and the bullpen. I mean, this is a very deep team, 1 through 26. This is probably the best quote unquote team, singular unit that's in the field around. Do they have the big stars? No. Obviously, the Dodgers have the best collection of talent in baseball. There's no argument there. Not even putting the Brewers on that level. But when you put together the sum of the parts, or whatever the cliche is, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better solid 1 through 26 unit in all facets of the game than the Brewers right now.
A lot of people would say, and I won't even hide behind a lot of people would say, Wags, I said about 5 or 6 weeks ago that I don't know how sustainable this hot run that the Brewers were already on at that point. I don't know how sustainable it is, because they weren't hitting the ball hard and they weren't hitting it over the fence, and that's how you win games in the modern. Home runs are one of the greatest win predictors in the game today. The Brewers are kind of bucking that trend. Do you think that in a weird way, though, what you're describing, this team that puts pitchers through hell and makes you work 1 through 9 without the long ball, it almost makes it more sustainable that they don't have to count on the home runs night in and night out to win games, and the fact that they don't strike out?
Well, for starters, people keep overlooking the Brewers' power. So since the trade deadline, so the month of August, basically, they're third in all of baseball. They're actually tied for second with the White Sox with 18 home runs. Only the Blue Jays, who have 19 this month, have more home runs. The Brewers' slugging percentage in the month of August is second to only the Blue Jays. So the power is there. It hasn't been as consistent. It hasn't been there as frequently, but the power exists in this lineup. And you're going to be getting more power back when you get Rhys Hoskins, who's probably going to be coming off the bench, when you get Jackson Chourio coming back from his injury, when Christian Yelich inevitably goes back on one of his heaters, because that's just who he is.
Yeah.
The power is there. We've been talking sustainability about this team now for a year and a half. Everyone said last year, how long can they sustain this? They won, 93 games. They're on pace to win damn near 100 this year. I think the argument about this being sustainable is exhausted at this point because they've proven that they can do it. Are they going to do this day in and day out the rest of the year? Absolutely not. They're going to go into a slump. But that's why it's important to ride this heater now as long as you can to build up that cushion. So when you do inevitably go into a little bit of a swoon, you have some cushion, you have some insurance there, and it's not going to decimate your season.
You've been around this game for a long time, covering this game for a while now. As long as I've been at the station in my on and off stints here, have you ever covered a manager as fun as Pat Murphy is?
No, I've never covered anyone as fun as Pat Murphy. He is considering who the Brewers used to have sitting in that chair, who was pretty much devoid of any and all personality except feeding contempt. A guy so miserable that he made me look like a pleasant human being. It's night and day. It's amazing to be able to ask a major league manager a question about strategy and not be belittled and insulted and mocked and put in the corner for asking a simple question.
Talking with Andrew Wagner, who covers the Brewers for Forbes Sports, and us right here on The Fan, brought to you by Focus Baseball. I think tonight is a perfect example of why the Brewers have been so good and so consistent and have been able to sustain this. And you talked about the starting pitching. I think with a lot of teams that were on 10-game winning streaks and Paul Skeens is running out there, you'd go, maybe their luck runs out tonight and the win streak ends. And maybe it does, but you run Freddie Peralta out there tonight, and you feel pretty damn good about your chances with that guy taking on Paul Skeens, don't you?
Yeah, and you look at what the Brewers did against Skeens the last time out, when it was Skeens and Mizorowski. They didn't slobber him by any stretch of the imagination, but they just did what they always do. They nickeled and dimed. They made the guy work, and they chased him, I think, in the fourth inning. Obviously he has tape of that. He knows what the Brewers are going to do coming into there. He's prepared for that. But the Brewers' style of play appeals. It matches up well when you're going up against good pitchers because you're still making them work. They're not going to be able to come up there and just fireball you and strike you out left and right because these guys have really good ball strike recognition. They do really good pitch selection. Like, these matchups tend to be favorable for the makeup of the Brewers' offense.
You mentioned the stat that you put out last night that you think Sparky ran and hid from about the OPS of third baseman Eugenio Suarez and Andrew Vaughn and some others on the Brewers. You shared another, and this was from MLB Now, but you shared another stat, a tweet about notable Brewers with listed height and 2025 WAR, and it's Durbin, Collins, Frelick, Ortiz, and Terang, who respectively are 5'7", 5'8", 5'8", 5'10", and 5'11", and all those guys performing. And Wags, it just goes to prove that short kings like myself, who stand at 5'7" and 7'8", we can get the job done. We can get the job done, Wags. I like that stat better than even your third baseman stat, to be quite honest with you. Oh, did we lose Wags? I think he dropped off. That's all right. Just tell him it was a stupid question. It was a dumb, stupid, fun question that I want to close the interview out with. Short guys can get it done, is what I'm trying to tell you. In baseball and elsewhere. That's right. Us guys who stand 5'8" on a good posture day. We can do some things in this world. You don't have to be like Charlie Houston over there. How tall are you, Charlie?
6'3".
I'm surprised every time I stand. I don't know why. I think it's because I just see him through the glass, like most of the time.
Do I look like a short guy?
Most of the time.
Do I have a short face?
I can't tell your height from here. I just see your shoulders and your head coming out from atop that computer monitor that's in front of you. And then you walk out and you stand next to me, and I'm like, God, I'm short. Standing next
There's
to
still
this
people
dude.
Taller than me. Andrew Wagner's taller than me.
That is true. He's a big dude. Wags is a big dude, and he's very good at covering the Brewers for Forbes Sports and us right here on the Brewers. And he's brought to you by Focus Baseball One, and he joins me on the Fan Guest Hotline powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. We'll hit a quick break. On the other side, I got to talk about something, and I think every time I fill in for Sparky, I'm like, I got to talk about this. It's irking me. It's getting under my skin, and it continues to happen. They continue to pound at this rock, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Little Bucks talk for you on Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM, The Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Ramie Makhlouf in for Steve Sparky Pfeiffer. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's and live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. My thanks once again to Andrew Wagner for joining me. Charlie's Sounds of the Day coming up in just a few minutes, about 3:40. Bart Winkler of the Infinity Sports Network, and of course, longtime host on this here station. He'll join me at 4 o'clock. I think I bring this up every time I fill in for Sparky on this show, and not because I'm obsessed with it, but because the stupid chatter just won't die. The stupid won't go away when it comes to Giannis Antetokounmpo and his place here in Milwaukee and how long he will stay a Milwaukee Buck. Look, I get it. Like when the season ends the way that it ends, and the way superstars move around this league, that people will throw out there, hey, maybe this is the year that Giannis finally asks out of Milwaukee, or the Bucks just decide it's time to move on and get something for him while they can and use those assets to rebuild this thing from the ground up. I get that. I understand that. And I understand when they release a Dame Lillard and you no longer have that superstar, even though they went and got Evan Turner, you no longer have that quote-unquote superstar to play alongside Giannis, that people would go, hey, you know what, maybe, just maybe Giannis will want out of Milwaukee. I get it. But man, it's August 12th. Like, we're weeks away from the Bucks reporting to training camp. And last I checked, Charlie, can you just do a quick search? Giannis is still a Buck.
As far as I can tell.
Can you confirm?
As far as I can tell.
Giannis is still a Buck, as far as I can tell.
Get some other eyes on this, but I'm pretty sure that's the facts.
And most of the player movement in the association, I think, has already happened, and historically has already happened by this point in the year. And I saw somebody reference the Kyrie Irving trade a few years ago when he forced his way out of Brooklyn, or was it Boston? One of his trades happened in early September or late August. I don't remember which one it was, but that was a guy who all off season was like, I want out of here, and then finally he got his way. We haven't heard that from Giannis. We haven't heard anything close to that from Giannis. The closest we heard was him on the I don't know how things work anymore. I Show Speed show? Did I get that right?
I Show Speed stream on Twitch.
I Show Speed stream on Twitch?
Yeah.
Is it on Twitch? Okay. Why not on YouTube? Never mind.
It probably is on YouTube too. I'm not even as informed on this as some people.
Hey, we're on YouTube. I'm pointing at the camera
Better
right
than
now.
I Show Speed, I think.
We're on YouTube at youtube.com/thefan-Milwaukee. He said probably Milwaukee when he was asked where he'll be playing next year. And then he brought like all of Milwaukee, and I'm not just talking about the Bucks. He brought like half of Milwaukee to practice with them in Greece this offseason. And
that's what it felt like.
And at that point, I was like, oh, okay. He's probably staying for at least another year. But still, you got Shams on Get Up saying this last week.
As we sit here on August 4th, sources tell me there is nothing set in stone about whether Giannis Antetokounmpo wants to stay in Milwaukee or whether he wants to leave elsewhere. He's been evaluating his future this entire offseason. I reported way back in mid-May that he's open-minded about whether his best fit is in Milwaukee or is it a trade elsewhere. That process has been continuing. There's been some real conversations he's having with his inner circle, from my understanding. And the one big question that is surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's surrounding his camp, is can he win another championship? Is this Bucks roster built for this upcoming season, for 2026-27, for him to win another championship, his second championship? We know how bad he wants to do that. And so only Giannis Antetokounmpo can make that determination, and clearly he wants to do it on his own time. I will say this. There are multiple teams that I know of that are literally waiting right now on what decision Giannis Antetokounmpo makes, waiting to see, does he actually hit the market? Training camps don't start till mid-September. There have been examples in the past. Kyrie Irving was traded to the Boston Celtics in August when he got moved. Damian Lillard was actually traded to Milwaukee in September. So there are deals that happen late in summers.
But both of those guys, as I said before, all offseason were saying, get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here. And then eventually, finally, their teams found the right match and the right trade and the right fit to make that trade. That's not the case with Giannis. That is not the case with Giannis.
Well, and I would argue those teams didn't find the right trade. I would say both those teams got less value for their players that they were trading.
Well, they found the best deal that they could find.
But doesn't that say all it needs to say about the Bucks situation here and trading a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is a top 3, maybe even not even 3, top 2 player in the NBA?
Thank you, Charlie, for setting me up perfectly for the point I was about to make. And before I even make that point, I bring this up because again today, and man, I love Zach Harper in The Athletic. Love his NBA columns. They're always really, really good. He's one of the smartest, most well-thought-out basketball writers in the game. And today he put out his NBA 2025 offseason concernometer.
It's a fun name. I like that.
It is a fun name. And he goes through a bunch of teams and what their level of concern is this offseason, this late in this offseason. But the first one is the Bucks. And on a scale of 0 to 10, he says the concernometer is at 7 for the Bucks and the Giannis situation. And he goes through like what they've done this offseason, what's been good, what's been bad about it. And then he follows it up with this. Is that enough to keep Giannis happy? I don't know. To Bucks GM John Horst's credit, every time there has been concern about Antetokounmpo potentially bolting, the franchise has made a bold move. When we weren't sure he'd sign a supermax to stay in Milwaukee, the Bucks made the deal for Drew Holiday in the 2020 offseason and won a title in 2021. When Giannis started talking about how only one title in his career wouldn't be enough, they surprised everybody by trading for Lillard. It didn't work out, but at the time, most of us assumed it made them title contenders. Maybe they've been quieted momentarily, but the questions this offseason following the Lillard injury haven't been answered. The state of the Eastern Conference makes this more palatable, and a Disney movie-style triumph seems more possible. Surround Giannis with defense and outside shooting, make the games ugly, rely on Giannis to be a superhero. To quote that kid in Angels in the Outfield, it could happen, though I don't know if anybody should bet on it happening. In my opinion, and he puts in parentheses, no reporting here, Shams could do the very same because we're not reporting really either. The biggest thing holding hope for Giannis staying in Milwaukee is that I don't fully believe he's willing to embrace the potential PR hit of bailing. I don't even necessarily think this is a marketing thing or about selling shoes or avoiding his jersey being burned on social media for clout. I think Giannis likes being universally liked and genuinely loves being in Milwaukee, and that's a tough pill to risk swallowing in many facets, but his competitive drive might eventually override that if they can't get him any closer to another title than the first round. I do think he likes being universally liked. I do think he loves being in Milwaukee, but I don't think that's the driving force. I think it goes back to what Charlie just alluded to, which is, where is he going? Like, first of all, and Harper brings this up in the article, the East is trash, dude. The East, and I know the West is stacked, and you're going to have to get through somebody in the West to win another title. But look at the Eastern Conference. Boston doesn't have Jason Tatum this year and traded everybody else except for Jaylen Brown in cost-cutting moves. The Knicks have a new head coach. The Pacers are done. The Pacers are finished between the Halliburton injury and losing Evan Turner to the Bucks in free agency. And yeah, the Pistons and the Magic are good young teams that could make a jump this year, but the East is not so good that the combination of Giannis and Evan Turner and the complementary pieces around them, it's unthinkable that they could come out of the Eastern Conference. Cleveland, who won the Eastern Conference last year, paper tigers, man. They were ousted by the Pacers easily, handily in the second round. I don't believe in Cleveland, and nobody else in this conference really impresses or jumps off the page to me. So take that along with the fact of who has the assets to go and get a Giannis Antetokounmpo in a trade, and after trading those assets, be in a much better position than the Bucks are to get out of the Eastern Conference or to win a championship. Who's that team? I can think of maybe two. San Antonio might have the pieces that it would take to trade what they need to trade to get a Giannis and still be a very good basketball team. And maybe Houston, but they gave up some of those assets to go and get Kevin Durant in the trade that they already made this offseason. No one else in the National Basketball Association has the assets it would take to trade for a Giannis and be in a great position to win a title after making that trade and giving up what they'd have to get him.
Yeah, I can't really think of any other teams. The other team that flashed in my mind was maybe like a Dallas. If you were able to trade an Anthony Davis and a couple other pieces for a Giannis and have Cooper Flag and Giannis Antetokounmpo, yes, maybe that might work out, but then you're still pretty thin behind those two guys. And you're kind of sitting in the same spot that the Milwaukee Bucks are sitting right now, too. Other team that flashed into my head was maybe like an Atlanta, just because they had last year's number 1 overall pick in Zachary Rizichet, and hoping that you could maybe turn him into something if you were to trade for him if you were the Milwaukee Bucks. But at the same time, that's a risk that you don't want to take either. Both those teams, I think, would be pretty weak behind Giannis and their other secondary star in order to make a championship run. And I think if you're not trading one of your top guys, if you're not trading that Cooper Flag, if you go to Denver and they're not trading a Nikola Jokic, or you're going to LA and they're not trading a Luka Doncic for a Giannis, then there's no point in making a trade at all. Honestly, I think you'd be better off just losing Giannis for nothing and having the free cap space to go do whatever you want then at that point, than just trading and putting yourself into a hole with guys like when the Trailblazers traded away Damian Lillard, when you get a Drew Holiday, and then now you're stuck with trying to put the Jeremy Grant there and giving him a big contract, and that doesn't really make sense either. You just dig yourself into a hole.
It makes no sense. And honestly, and man, I was a big fan of Shams and his NBA reporting, but he's just fallen into the same trap that NBA discourse has been for years now, which is just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what'll stick, which is talking about everything but the game and needing to speculate on what's going to happen rather than just reporting on what is happening on and off the court. I mean, I'm going to put this word, his reporting on Giannis, and that last report that I just played, I'm going to play it again, or a portion of it again.
As we sit here on August 4th, sources tell me there is nothing set in stone about whether Giannis Antetokounmpo wants to stay in Milwaukee or whether he wants to leave elsewhere. He's been evaluating his future this entire offseason. I reported way back in mid-May that he's open-minded about whether his best fit is in Milwaukee or is it a trade elsewhere. That process has been continuing. There's been some real conversations he's having with his inner circle, from my understanding. And the one big question that is surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's surrounding his camp, is can he win another championship?
It's cowardly. His reporting is cowardly. Yeah, Giannis probably has that question in mind. I wouldn't doubt that he has that question in mind. But do you really think Giannis on August 12th or later is going to pull the rug out from under the Bucks and demand a trade now? Again, with both Kyrie and Damian Lillard, who he references later in that report, that was out there all offseason, that they wanted out. It was out there. It wasn't like beneath the surface type stuff, like, oh, he's considering it. He's talking about it with people in his circle. No, they were like, I want out.
Well, and
get me out of here.
Both those guys had next steps to take. Where does Giannis have to go? What does he have to do still?
It makes no sense. Now, hey, man, maybe next year. Maybe next year, depending on how the season ends, Giannis comes out at the end of the year and just flat out says, I need to go somewhere else. I need to go somewhere to somewhere else to win a title. And I don't think Bucks fans would, as Zach Harper alludes to in his article, I don't think they'd burn his jerseys on social media for clout. I don't think that's happening. I think Bucks fans fully appreciate what Giannis has done for him, and if he decided it was time to move on, I think they'd understand that. This isn't a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar situation that happened over 50 years ago, where it was really ugly when he demanded to get out of it. I think we're at a point now where Bucks fans they'd be heartbroken. We love this dude here in this city. They'd be heartbroken, but they'd kind of understand. But it's not happening this year. If it was going to happen this year, it would have happened. And you only are reporting that, Shams. You're only putting that in your article, Zach Harper, because you got nothing else to talk about right now. You got nothing else to talk about right now. And I'm sorry, but that's what's wrong with the NBA discourse right now is that when you don't have anything to talk about, you just make stuff up. You just throw stuff against the... Because the way Shams reports it, nothing has changed. Nothing is set in stone. It could go one way or the other. Nobody can go to Shams in a month from now when Giannis is in Bucks camp and go, see, you were wrong, because he can just throw his hands up and go, I never said he was leaving. I just said nothing is set in stone. Apparently, he decided to stay in Milwaukee. It's been decided. Giannis ain't going nowhere in 2025. I've already offered to put money on the table on that with multiple people who I know from other markets outside of Milwaukee who are convinced that it's still a possibility. I will bet anybody who wants to bet me that Giannis is suiting up for the Milwaukee Bucks in 2025. You heard it here on Wisconsin Sports Daily from Ramie Makhlouf filling in for Steve Sparky Pfeiffer, and you can take it to the bank. Giannis is going to be a Buck this year, and they're going to have a chance to come out of the Eastern Conference. Call me crazy, but I think both those things are fact and reality, that Giannis will be a Buck, and that alone gives them a chance to come out of the Eastern Conference.
I think so. I think that this team has everything it needs to get to that point. And when it comes to how the NFL and NBA and MLB discourse happens, MLB fans, I've always said this, love the sport. NFL fans love their team. NBA fans love the drama. And you can see it on social media all the time with all these different accounts like NBA Central and Dunk Central and all these other accounts that just love spreading drama. Love the sport for a little bit. Love the teams.
I'm tired of it. And I'm a guy who kind of likes that stuff. You know what I mean? Major League Baseball trade deadline day, one of my favorite days of the year. I like rumors. I like hot stove. I like player movement and trades and free agency.
You love that movement. You don't love the players complaining about their situations and stuff like that. It's about what the trade is.
He's not going anywhere. Giannis is staying a Buck. Time for your hourly weather report here on The Fan. We are looking at 81 degrees and cloudy right now in the Milwaukee area. Going to dip down into the low 70s, high 60s before the night is up. We do still have a chance of rain in the 6 p.m. hour, but it looks like most of the rain that had a chance of hitting us has moved out of the area and missed us to the east. So that's good. We've dealt with enough of that rain here in Milwaukee of late. We'll hit a quick break. On the other side, it's Charlie's Sounds of the Day on Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's and live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM, The Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. It's everybody's favorite segment of the show. It's Charlie's Sounds of the Day. Bart Winkler will be here at 4 o'clock, but this is where Charlie finds a few interesting, fun sounds from the world of sports and elsewhere and plays it back, and we just react to it. We give our reaction and our thoughts on Charlie's Sounds of the Day. So now I turn it over to Charlie Houston on the other side of the glass. Charlie, what do we have in your Sounds of the Day today, my friend?
All right, first up, we're going to head over to Foul Territory on the FanDuel Sports Network, one of my favorite shows to watch. They break down baseball better than any other show besides the leadoff show hosted by Tommy Wirtz.
Of course.
Here before every Brewers game, right here on the Fan. This is former GM and current MLB analyst Jim Bowden on the 2025 Brewers and why he feels like this team has a better chance to make a run than the CC Sabathia Brewers.
But I think this particular team is a little bit different than the rest. I mean, when you have three guys, Peralta, Mizorowski, and Woodruff, pitching up to their capabilities with McGill and what he's done, the first-time All-Star this year, and the way they play defense, the way they're so athletic, the way they move the chains, and yet they have the veterans like Christian Yelich that can also carry the team. I think this team's a little bit different. I think this team has a better ceiling just because of how deep they are. And again, I think Pat Murphy has just done a brilliant job with this group. They're very close. They can beat you in so many different ways, right? And, Bryce Terang can make a diving play up the middle to win you a game. Durbin's jersey's dirty by the national anthem. There's just there's grit, it's a complete team. So I actually like this team a lot better than any Brewer team since Sabathia was on the bump.
I like this Brewers team more than recent incarnations of the Brewers, like the 7 of 8 that have made the playoffs here in the last 8 years. I don't know. That's the 2008 team he's talking about, right? If I'm not mistaken, that was the year they traded for CC Sabathia. It's hard to put myself back there. I mean, I was here. I was on the Fan when the Brewers were on that run. So, but it's hard to say. Like, if you asked Ramie on August 12th of 2008 versus Ramie on August 12th of 2025. God, I'm old. That just dawned on me. It's been 17 years that I've been talking into microphones here on the Score. Good Lord. But I don't know if I would, full honesty, if I would say that I'm more confident in this team on this day than I was in that team on this day, just because I'm still a believer in the power of the home run, in the power of the superstar and the big bat in the middle of your lineup. And man, you're talking about Prince Fielder and Ryan Braun and Corey Hart and Ricky Weeks. I mean, that was a lineup that was just stacked with home run hitters and guys who were making all-star games and were in the MVP discussion. You know what I mean? And that's no knock on this team now. And we talked about it earlier in the show. Charlie and I said I have a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in this team, and more than any team of recent memory when it comes to the Milwaukee Brewers. But I don't know that I'd go as far as to say I have more faith or belief in this team than I did that 2008 team that traded for CC Sabathia. That's not a huge stretch, but a bit of a stretch for me, and a little bit of recency bias and prisoner of the moment there with Jim Bowden.
Right, and I think with the 2008 team, you didn't have the same kind of start to the season as you had this year. And I think the start to the season this year still kind of lingers in the back of my mind. I know it's been a lot of fun to watch this team over the course of the past 3 or 4 months, but the first 2 months of the season were not fun to watch this Brewers baseball team. There were still moments where they felt like they were trying to figure things out for themselves, and it just wasn't working. Now we're getting to a point where it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of excitement. But also, Mark Atanasio told us there was going to be a summer of excitement and fun, and said that's not really about the championships with this team. So we have to wait till the postseason for me to really, truly get excited about it like that.
For sure. What else we got in Charlie's Sound of the Day?
We're going to head over to Video, a tennis streaming service where Emma Raducanu, I had to work on saying that name since you sent me this clip.
There you go.
She is currently the number 10 women's tennis player in the world out of Great Britain. She gets frustrated over a crying child during one of her tennis matches. Here's the clip of her getting frustrated and the ref responding to her.
It's a child. Do you want me to send the child out of the stadium? but we need to continue for the moment.
I believe that is the clapping sound of people cheering the mother and the child leaving.
I love how the judge was not expecting her to just be like, yeah, get that kid out of here. And not only was Raducanu saying, yes, I want that child out of here. Multiple people in the stands were like, yeah, get him out. And then, like you said, they start clapping when the mother and child start to exit the stadium. And quite frankly, we need to normalize getting crying babies out of public spaces. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, dude. I'm just going to go. I know once you're on a plane, you're trapped on a plane. But if you're in a restaurant and your kid, take them outside until they stop crying. You're ruining everybody's dinner. You're ruining everybody's tennis match. Charlie, I was at Target the other day. Mm-hmm. I was at the local Target there in Bayview, and I walked all around the store. Like, I was looking for different stuff. I needed some clothes. I'm always going to stop by the electronics department and see what kind of toys I might want to buy, what gadgets I might want to get. You know what I mean? I went over to the food section. Like, I literally made the whole round of Target and then back around to the register.
Is this a fun day in married life?
I was flying solo this day.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and I swear to you, no matter where I went in the store, I could hear the blood-curdling cries and not just like regular cries, like guttural. Like I was concerned for this child, and at the same time furious at this. I never at one point actually saw the crying baby. But no matter where I went in the store, I could hear it, and it was sending chills down my spine. Like, it was some of the hardest, most blood-curdling crying I've ever heard in my life, and it was audible from anywhere inside of Target. And at some point, you just go, we gotta go. You know what I mean? Like, we have become an inconvenience to the hundreds of people that are here in this store, and I'm making my problem their problem. And we just got to step outside for a minute and calm this child down. We need to normalize removing loudly crying babies from public spaces. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
I don't even think it's just that. Social and spatial awareness is a virtue that not many people have anymore, and they need to have that a little bit more. And
then a couple days later, I was back at that Target. This time it was a marital trip, and the guy, his daughter was crying. He tried picking her up and giving her a little bounce and calming her down. It didn't work. He went outside.
There you go.
He took her outside. I was like, that's a much better dad. It's a much better dad than the one I ran into the other day.
There you go. I love to see somebody at least making a difference. You
little
know?
Consideration.
Exactly.
A little consideration for your fellow man in a public space.
Exactly. You just want to look at the electronics. That's it.
You can comment angrily at youtube.com.
Two men who do not have children are talking about children.
Exactly.
All right. And last up here, we're going to head over to the Rich Eisen show. You can hear that on the Fan here from 12 to 2 or 11 to 2, excuse me. Rich Eisen Tom Pelissero was filling in for Rich Eisen. He was talking with Scott Hansen of NFL Red Zone, which is now owned by ESPN, about the potential of doing a college Red Zone.
I recognize my station in the world, or my place in the American sports fans' life, and I'm very thankful for that I spend 7 hours every Sunday in people's living rooms across the nation, across the world for that matter. I take it very, very seriously, but it's been kind of a wild ride. And as for college football Red Zone, which is the big one that people are talking about, if Bob Iger, Jimmy Pitaro, Burt Magnuson want to hit me up, I love college. I love college every bit as much as I love pros.
Well, there's way more games too.
There's a lot of different dynamics. If you were to do a college football Red Zone, okay, first of all, ESPN doesn't have the rights to every conference.
Right.
And second of all, the kickoffs are not all synchronized. Yeah, you get a good batch kicking off at noon Eastern, but they're not all synchronized. They come at different times. The games go throughout the day. And then here's the other thing. If your favorite team is the New York Giants, fine, the New York Giants, you can probably still name the other 31 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. If your favorite team is the Alabama Crimson Tide, you probably know the Alabama Crimson Tide, but you can't name me 30 other quarterbacks in college football. You might be able to name the rest of the SEC maybe, or maybe some of the big opponents, but so it's not, college is not quite as accessible to the frontal lobe of the American sports fan as it is in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good analysis and breakdown of why that works for the NFL and maybe wouldn't work as well for college. Also, I'll throw in there, maybe I just missed it. Did they say anything about fantasy? Because to me,
they did not.
That's what makes the red zone and so popular with so many people is fantasy football. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think college fantasy football is a big thing. I know some people, sickos. I know some people are playing college fantasy football who just need their fix. They got to have their hand in something on Saturday, but I don't think college fantasy football is a big deal, and so I don't think it drives the viewers to the red zone the way that it does for the NFL.
No, I don't think so. I think with college sports, there's daily fantasy, which you can do like prize picks, make your 3 picks a day, have the more or less. But at the same time, that's not for everybody. You can't just, that's not as accessible. That's not something that people just kind of jump into as easy. It's something that you really want to be a part of. And if that's what draws people into a red zone, then what's the point of doing it at the college level if that's not going to draw people in?
And I'll say, I already said get crying babies out of public spaces. I'll say something else that's not that popular. I'm not as big a red zone guy as some people are.
Oh, really?
I like watching a football game. I like the rhythm of sitting and watching a football. I like the time in between plays. I like the rhythm of I like watching a whole football, even if it's not the team one of the teams that's playing is not one that I root for or not one that I cover. I will sit down and just watch a football game on Sunday, and I think more times than not, I prefer that to the red zone. No knock on Scott Hansen and what he does over there and everybody who loves it. I'm not as big into it as some people are.
My favorite thing about it is just every score at the end of the day. When they go through and just give you every single touchdown that happened, that's why I watch it the most, honestly, because I'm kind of like you. I like switching between red zone and then a full game. Red zone, go back a little bit just to see what's happening, and then a full game, and then I like seeing all the touchdowns at the end of the day.
All right, I see Bart Winkler waiting on the YouTube feed. He's in the waiting room. You don't leave a national sports talk radio host waiting, so we're going to hit a quick break, and then we'll get right to what's he holding up?
Double Bart Winkler.
Does he have a cutout of himself?
He does have a cutout.
He has a cutout of himself?
It's awesome.
Okay. All right. It's gone to his head. Being a national sports talk radio show host has obviously gone to his head. Bart Winkler of Infinity Sports Radio will join me, Ramie Makhlouf, in for Steve Sparky Pfeiffer right after this on Wisconsin Sports Daily. Served up by Wendy's and live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM, The Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.